Baby Kato, by Amber Street. Copyright 2021. Series description. Three strangers' lives are suddenly thrown together after an alien spaceship crashes in the hills of Simi Valley, California. When a teenage boy discovers the crash and finds that a baby alien survived, a federal agent investigates the incident, and a local scientist has the daunting task of finding the balance between this incredible scientific discovery and preserving and protecting alien life. Episode 1. The UFO. Astronaut Doug Pernan had just fallen asleep at his workstation in the U.S. space station Morona, that was located in the Earth's lower exosphere, when he heard an alarm go off. He awoke with a jolt and looked at the radar screen in front of him. There was an unidentified flying object coming straight towards them. It was flying too erratically to be a meteor or space trash. Doug pushed the emergency alarm button to alert the other three astronauts that were living on the football field-sized space station with him as part of a team of astro researchers. He was able to put up a reflector shield to help protect the station from any known weapons attacks. But it wouldn't be strong enough if the craft crashed directly into them. As soon as the alarm sounded, the other three astronauts went to their respective stations and prepared for possible impact. There were 4 separate sections to the space station, and each section was built to be sealed off from the other sections in the event of an emergency, to give the astronauts a better chance at survival if something crashed into the station, depending how large the object was and where it hit. Doug was responsible for sealing off each section of the Morona space station, once each astronaut was secure in their assigned section. In the event that the lead astronaut was killed in such a scenario, the other astronauts had the ability to unlock and open their sections of the space station. They would not be trapped. There were cameras all over the Morona, and all 4 of the astronauts were able to see what was going on at all times on monitors that were built into their separate workstations. Thanks to thousands of radio communication satellites between the space station and Earth, Doug was able to contact Mission Control at TNSA, the National Space Agency, within seconds. Mission Control, we have an unknown craft heading directly towards us at a very high rate of speed. Oliver Stewart, age 48, with brown hair and brown eyes, was working his early morning shift in the Mission Control Center, MCC, at TNSA. Oliver said calmly, "We just had an alarm go off here a split second ago alerting us. I was just about to contact you. It looks like it may be veering to the right." "I put up the deflector shields," Doug said. He nervously ran his hand over his chocolate brown-colored hair. His green eyes, though tired, watched the screen carefully. "Just in case it turns aggressive." "Good. I am alerting the ESAA to activate Space Flight 9. They will be in the air faster than you can ask. Who's your daddy?" Doug gave a slight smile with that inside joke from Oliver. "Thanks, I needed that." Oliver sent out an urgent alert to the ESAA, Earth Space Aeronautics Agency, to activate Space Flight 9, Squadron A, which was an elite group of specially trained ESAA pilots. Squadron A were the top of the elite. The ESAA was formed in the early part of 2783 when TNSA alongside ADC, Aeronautics Development Company, developed flight planes that could take off from the ground and break through Earth's orbit and fly into and around outer space. The ESAA Air Base was located in the Arizona desert, and they always had several pilots who could take off within minutes. Doug watched the monitor closely. Oliver was correct. The craft was veering away from the space station. He sighed a breath of relief and watched it fly out of sight within seconds. Episode 2. Heading towards Earth. Doug informed the other 3 astronauts, who were monitoring the UFO from their own radar screens, that he was unlocking and opening each section of the station. Meanwhile, ESA, Earth Space Astronaut, Captain Daniel T. Parker had received the alert from TNSA and went immediately to the flight deck for a quick 1-minute briefing. Pilots always wore their flight uniforms while on duty and were ready to go at a moment's notice. Once the briefing was through, Daniel walked with 2 of his fellow pilots, Jordan Sands and Stephen Williams, to the tarmac. They had worked together at the ESAA for 4 years and were part of one of 4 squadrons in Space Flight 9. Captain Daniel Ted Parker was 38, with dark brown hair and blue eyes. Jordan Sands was the ESA's only female pilot, but she was working to change that. She was 27 years old and had short dark brown hair and brown eyes. Stephen Williams was 40 years old and had light brown hair and green eyes. They were half of Squadron A in Space Flight 9. Daniel was a senior pilot and was always the one to give the orders. The ASCR-21's air-to-spacecraft rockets were adjacent to each other on the tarmac. All three would typically take off simultaneously. Today was no exception. Daniel initiated the pre-flight checklist, while giving commands to the other two pilots to follow and verbally repeat the commands as they executed the pre-flight sequence. This was a safety measure to make sure that each of the pilots were at the same step at the same time during the process. Daniel gave the following commands: ignition, set; thrusters set; boosters set; all set for takeoff. Jordan and Stephen repeated each item directly after Daniel. Ignition, set; thrusters set; boosters set; all set for takeoff. The sound of the rocket booster engines were massive. The pilots wore special, department-issued protective earmuffs. ESAA control tower gave Squadron A the all-clear signal. Squadron A, all clear and ready for takeoff in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The three pilots felt a huge adrenaline rush as they took off from the tarmac. The massive and powerful ASCR-21s were a hybrid of a space rocket and an ultra-stealth fighter jet, capable of flying in all levels of the Earth's atmosphere and in outer space, but not in deep space. "Here we go," Daniel said into his headset to Jordan and Stephen. "Roger that," Jordan said. "Ditto," Stephen added. The three pilots maneuvered the three ASCR-21s off the ground and into and through the troposphere, the stratosphere, the mesosphere, the thermosphere, and finally into the exosphere. While most space stations were in Earth's thermosphere, the space station Morona was in Earth's lower exosphere. Once in the exosphere, it took several minutes for the pilots to spot the spacecraft that they had been called to track and target, if necessary. Daniel was the first to notice it on his radar. His nickname was Split Second, because he always noticed things a split second before anyone else did. "We have our target in sight." Daniel relayed the information to the other pilots and to the MCC, who was in charge once the aircraft had reached Earth's mesosphere. "It's flying erratically," Daniel continued. "We are closing in as quickly as we can. We are almost on it, and then it moves left, right, diagonally, as well as up and down. This is unreal. It has the ability to move in every direction. Follow it the best that you can, Captain Parker." Stan Roberts, one of the main communications specialists at MCC, said calmly. "One thing's for sure," said Daniel. "It's heading right towards Earth." Episode 3. Within minutes. Within minutes, the spacecraft was out of sight. "What the?" Daniel said. "It just disappeared before our eyes, Stan." Stan looked at his radar and scratched his head. "It's off the radar. Did you see it crash?" he asked.
No.
"It was as though it made itself invisible," Daniel answered. "Look around a while and then come home if you don't see any sign of it. And be careful. If it truly has the ability to make itself invisible, it could be dangerous." "I'm right on it," Daniel said. A moment later, Jordan's ASCR-21 hit something and exploded. The wave of the explosion and the pieces of her ASCR-21 hit Daniel and Stephen's ASCR-21s. None of the pilots survived. Stan was listening for any transmissions as he was watching his radar screen. All three ASCR-21s disappeared off of radar without any of the pilots saying a word. Stan stared at the screen for a moment in shock. One of the other main communications specialists at MCC that was working walked over to Stan. His name was Ed Hilborn. He was 56 years old and had balding gray and black hair and tired, light green eyes. "What happened?" Ed asked. Stan looked at his radar screen for another moment and then at Ed. "We lost them." Ed slowly nodded. Stan took a deep breath and snapped out of his daze and attempted to contact the three pilots. There was no response. "They're gone," Stan said as he laid his headphones down on his desk. In the meantime, the UFO, while it was very well built, had been damaged enough to cause it to spin out of control and hurtle towards Earth. The alien ship crash landed deep in the hills of Simi Valley, California. It was sturdy enough to remain intact, though. Its occupants were well protected by special technology advances in crash landings. All of the occupants survived. Their ship was made visible again when they crash landed. "Quick! Put the invisibility cloak shields up. Stat!" Captain Zerko Zorkov shouted to his wife, Leolani. The ship's on fire. Leolani shouted. We need to extinguish the fire first. Leolani looked over her shoulder at the electronics panel that had caught fire. Zerko pushed the fire extinguisher controls several times. They're not working. Get baby Kato off the ship. Zerko coughed as he spoke as the smoke started to fill up the control room. I will keep trying to activate the extinguishers. I will meet you outside. Leolani nodded her head. Just as she was about to leave the control room to get baby Kato from his safety crib, the door to the control room jammed from the panel fire, locking both her and Zerko in the control room. Within moments, the control room ran out of air from the fire. Both Zerko and Leolani passed out just as the extinguishers finally kicked in and put the fire out. Within moments, oxygen was restored to the control room and Zerko and Leolani survived. While Zerko and Leolani remained in a semi-comatose state in the locked control room, a young teenager named Sam Shepard had been riding his unmotorized dirt bike down several trails in the hills near his home when he saw the UFO crash. He rode as quickly as he could over to the ship and took his cell phone out of his jeans pocket and started taking pictures and video. Sam had dark brown hair and brown eyes. He was 14 years old. This is amazing, Sam said, as he captured what was sure to be one of the biggest events in history. Just as Sam was trying to decide if he should go live on his video channel or wait and do an epic video and surprise everyone later, Sam heard what sounded like a baby crying. Episode 4. Baby Kato. Sam turned and looked around. He was the only one in the field. He held his breath. It sounds like it's coming from the ship, Sam said as he continued to take video. As he walked closer to the crashed ship, he squinted his nose. It smells awful, like it's on fire. Sam could hear the cries grow louder as he got up next to the ship. There's a baby inside. I think the ship is on fire, Sam shouted. He quickly walked around the ship and looked for a way in. He finally found what looked like a door on the backside. It had been hit hard enough to knock it open when the ship crashed. Sam paused his video recording and put his phone in his pocket, while he pried the door open to the dark gray ship. It was dark inside, so Sam decided to take his phone out of his pocket, stop the recording for a moment, and then start a new recording using flash so that he could light his way. He didn't think to be concerned with being attacked by an alien, as the bright light from his phone made him a very visible target. Sam stepped into the corridor that was just inside the door and stopped. Everything was quiet except for the sound of the crying baby. Sam listened carefully. The sound seemed to echo through the ship. It took him a moment to decipher what direction the crying was coming from. It was to his right. Sam held his breath for a moment as he walked down the dark and eerie corridor. He could almost hear his heart beating with sudden fear of the reality of what he was walking in and what he could be walking into. As he continued on, Sam took slow, quiet breaths. He kept recording. Good thing I have a full battery and a lot of space on my phone, Sam thought to himself as he came closer to the sound of the crying. I hope that he is not hurt, Sam thought as he neared a closed door with no handles to the room where the crying was coming from. This is it, he said as he reached out his free hand and pressed on the door. The door popped open. The crying stopped. The room was dimly lit and empty, except for a large metal cage. Sam held his breath as he looked at what was inside of the cage. Sitting up on a large white mattress of sorts was the source of the crying. It's a baby alien, Sam said out loud, almost dropping his phone. As soon as Sam said those words, the adorable, cute, green alien baby with large brown eyes stared at him. The baby cooed words that Sam did not understand. Just as Sam was trying to decide what to do, the smell of smoke came into the room. Fire, Sam whispered loudly. I need to get you out of here. Sam kept filming as he walked up to the cage. He quickly looked for a way to open it. Shoot, I have to stop filming, Sam mumbled to himself. Rescues are always great for getting millions of views. Sam quickly paused his video, put his phone in his pocket and slowly opened the cage door. Don't bite me, Sam said as he slowly reached his hands into the cage and tried to pick the baby alien up. The baby was tied down and only moved an inch. Oh, you're buckled to the bottom of the cage, Sam said as he set the baby alien down and quickly worked to free him. Episode 5. The Alarm. Just as Sam finished unbuckling the baby alien, a loud alarm sounded. Sam panicked and quickly picked up the alien baby and looked around. He spotted a large, black duffel-type bag that was near the cage. Sam grabbed it and put the strap over his shoulder. He quickly ran out of the room and down the same corridor that he had come in from. There were low lights now on above the corridor. "Oh no, they know that I'm here," Sam thought to himself as he neared the door of the ship. Sam felt so panicked that huge green aliens would come after him, that he didn't stop to think that if there were any alive, that it would be better for them to have the baby and keep it safe from the fire that Sam smelled smoke from, than for him to take it. Sam quickly ran out the door and then ran around the ship to his bike and got on it as fast as he could. He quickly looked at the ship. It was completely silent. No one was after him. Sam adjusted the strap to the black bag so that it would be easier to ride his bike home. "I'm not taking any chances," Sam said as he looked back at the ship and then at the baby alien. "I can't just leave you here," Sam said. He held on to the baby alien as best as he could while he quickly rode his bike away. Just as Sam neared a small grove of trees, he heard helicopters overhead. "They've seen the ship," Sam said out loud as he quickly hid with his bike behind a tree and looked up at the sky. There were 2 dark gray military helicopters flying over the crash site. Sam looked at the baby alien. "What are the odds that they will believe that I rescued you and that I didn't kidnap you?" Sam asked out loud as he looked into the baby's large brown eyes. The baby alien cooed. "Come on, I'm going to take you home. Then I can talk to Albert and Jill, and they can help me to figure this out. You will like them. They are my best friends," Sam said as he turned and rode his bike through the grove of trees. Once Sam got to the other side of the small grove of trees, he was safe. There was a small forest that met the small grove of trees. He had plenty of coverage while he rode his bike down into a wide, dry stream bed. Sam rode up the stream, which went through the center of the small forest all the way home. When Sam got home, he quickly got off of his bike and leaned it against the side of the house and went inside. He quickly closed the door behind him and looked around. His mom was still at work. Sam heard a noise. He looked out the window. There were more helicopters flying overhead. "I hope that they didn't see me when I left the forest," Sam thought to himself. There was a small clearing between the forest and Sam's house. Sam looked at the baby alien, who was wearing a white diaper, a white t-shirt, and a metal, oval-shaped bracelet. Sam looked at the bracelet. "Kato." Sam looked at the alien. "Is that your name?" Sam asked. "Kato," baby Kato cooed and smiled. "I guess it is. Come on," Sam said as he took baby Kato up to his room. He set the black bag down on his bed and sat down, still holding Kato. Sam lived with his mother, Pam. Their house was an old farmhouse, and it was fairly isolated. There weren't any other houses around for about a quarter of a mile. Pam was divorced from Sam's father, Mike. Mike lived in Seattle. Pam was 38 years old and had medium dark blonde hair and hazel green eyes. She was a server at one of the diners in town, named Ma's Diner. Sam took his phone out of his pocket while he held on to Kato. He quickly conference called Jill and Albert. "Hey, you guys need to come to my house right now," Sam said urgently. "What's going on?" Albert asked. "Don't ask. Just get here as quickly as you can," Sam said. "Okay," Jill said. Albert and Jill hung up, got their shoes on, and then got on their bikes. They rode to Sam's house as fast as they could. Albert and Jill were brother and sister. They lived in one of the houses that was closest to Sam's. Both Albert and Jill had dark brown hair and brown eyes. Albert was 14, and Jill was 13. It didn't take them long to get to Sam's house. Sam was waiting for them at the front door. He was holding Kato when he slowly opened the front door and smiled at Albert and Jill. Episode 6. Not a doll. Jill looked at Sam and smiled. It took both her and Albert a moment to comprehend what they were seeing. "What is that? A doll?" Albert asked with a smile as he pushed past Sam and Kato and walked inside. He stopped and looked at Sam. "So, what's the emergency?" Jill reached out her hand to touch what she thought was an alien doll. "How cool is that?" Where did you get it? Don't touch him,
Sam shouted.
Sam's shouting scared baby Kato, and he started crying. Both Albert and Jill screamed. Shoo! Sam said as he bounced Kato up and down gently, like he had seen his mother do when she babysat her friend's baby. I didn't mean to scare you. These are my friends that I told you about, Sam quickly said while he ignored the looks of shock on Albert's and Jill's faces. Oh my gosh, Jill whispered loudly. That's not a doll? Wait, is that a doll? Or is it some kind of robot? Albert asked with half anxiety and half excitement. No, it's a real alien, Sam said as he turned and walked to the kitchen. You're okay, Kato, Sam said as he sat down on one of the kitchen chairs that was pulled out from the kitchen table. Albert and Jill quickly followed Sam and Kato. An alien? Albert asked as he pulled out a chair and sat down. His voice cracked as he said the word, alien. Yes, an alien. That's why I called you guys over here. I was out riding the trails alone when I saw something fall from the sky and hit the ground. It was an alien ship. I got video and pictures. I heard a baby crying, so I went inside the ship and found him. Then I smelled smoke, so I rescued him. I couldn't just leave him there in the field. Jill sat down in one of the chairs to Albert's right. She looked at Kato. His name is Kato? How did you know? You went inside an alien ship? Albert asked with awe. Sam nodded his head at Albert and then looked at Jill. Kato stopped crying when Jill said his name. It's on his ID bracelet. Where are his parents? Albert asked. Sam shrugged his shoulders. I guess they are still on the ship. You left his parents on a burning ship? Jill said crossly. Shoo, not so loud. You'll make him cry again, Sam said. I didn't think of rescuing his parents. I thought more of being eaten by them. Shoo, he will hear you, Jill quipped. Sam looked at Kato and then at Jill. I don't think he understands English, just his name. Jill nodded and stood up. Well, we need to go see if his parents are okay. They may be looking for him. They may be worried sick. Or not, Sam said. Jill got a look of shock and sadness on her face. You mean you don't think that they made it? Jill asked as she sat back down on her chair. I don't know, Sam answered. Why don't we go ride our bikes out there and look? Albert said as he stood up. I want to see an alien ship, Albert said with a grin. Sam looked at Albert and stood up. I'm not sure that we should chance it. The military got there just as I was leaving. How far from here is the ship? Albert asked. It's just past that small grove of trees that we used to go riding near on the trails. Sam usually went riding with his friends, but he had ventured out alone this time. He regretted it. I wish that I would have asked you guys to come with me. Episode 7. The Help of Friends. Me too, Albert said. Why didn't you? Jill asked. Sam shrugged his shoulders. I didn't want to say anything, but I overheard my mom on the phone. She is having money problems. So, I just felt like being alone. I'm sorry, Jill said. Albert held his index finger up in the air and got a huge grin on his face. Do you know how much money you could make off of Kato? Sam looked at Albert. If the government doesn't arrest me first for stealing him. I thought that you said that you rescued him, Albert said with a scrunched brow. I did, but you know how people treat teenagers sometimes. They would tell me that I should have waited there at the scene. Oh boy. Yeah. You're in big trouble. Stealing from the government is a big deal, Albert said in a slight know-it-all tone of voice. I didn't steal from the government, Sam said in annoyance. I rescued him from a burning ship. Albert made a face. Yeah, I think all aliens that come to Earth are government property, though. Come on, Jill said as she stood up again. Let's take him back to the ship. Maybe they are still there, and you can just say that you got scared and took him home. Sam looked at Jill. Or I could just wait until my mom comes home from work and ask her what to do. Sam thought about what he said for a moment and then shook his head. No, never mind that idea. She is under a lot of stress. Maybe the government will give you a big reward if you turn him in, Albert said. I wonder if there is anything on the news, Jill said as she walked over to the small television set that was sitting on the counter next to the microwave. She turned it on and picked up the remote. She flipped through several news stations. No, nothing. Maybe they are keeping it a secret. Probably so, Albert said. I say that we ride our bikes over there and get as close as possible without being seen. Sam stood up and nodded and said, Okay. What are we going to do with Kato? Jill asked. Sam sighed and looked at Kato. We can't leave him here. Well, if we are seen, they are sure to notice him, Albert said. Sam got a big smile on his face. I've got an idea. Follow me. Albert and Jill looked at Sam and then followed him to the den. Sam pointed to a dark blue, large backpack that was sitting on the fireplace hearth. Can you guys take my books out of my backpack and bring me the backpack? Sam asked. His books and backpack had been sitting there since the last day of school before summer vacation. Sam walked over to the couch and sat down. Jill nodded and retrieved Sam's backpack. She carefully took the books out and placed them on the coffee table that was in front of the couch and then sat down next to Sam. Help me to put him in, will you? Sam said as he held Kato over the open backpack. We can leave it unzipped enough for him to be able to get enough air. Both Albert and Jill helped Sam to get Kato into the backpack. Kato was surprisingly compliant. Don't be afraid, Sam said as he slowly zipped up both sides of the backpack until there were several inches left open, in front of Kato's face and to each side of Kato's face. Kato cooed and looked out. His eyes looked a bit fearful. Do you think that he will be okay? Jill asked as she looked at Kato's big, sad eyes. Maybe he misses his parents? Albert added. Episode 8. Back to the scene. He probably does, Sam said as he stood up while holding on to the backpack. Maybe it's good that we are going back. At least we could see if his parents survived. Yeah. Maybe the military called the fire department or put the fire out themselves, Jill said hopefully as she stood up. Help me put my backpack on, will ya? Sam asked as he looked at Jill. Jill nodded and helped Sam to slip on his backpack. He doesn't weigh very much, Sam said as he adjusted the straps. He took a breath and sighed. Okay, if you guys could help to keep an eye on him while we ride out there. Let me know if it looks like he is trying to get out. Albert and Jill nodded. The three friends looked out the kitchen window before going out through the back kitchen door. No helicopters, Albert said. Sam looked cautiously around. And no government officials at my house yet either, he said in relief. Sam carefully got on his bike and led the way. He went much slower than he normally would, so that the ride would not be too bumpy for Kato. The three friends rode in silence as Sam led them through the forest and then to the small grove of trees. Once they were several feet into the grove, Sam stopped. How's Kato doing? Jill rode her bike closer to Sam and stopped. She looked at Kato. He looks a little motion sick. How can you tell? Albert asked as he rode his bike closer to Jill and stopped. He's green, Jill said with a look on her face. He's always green, Albert said. Well, he is greener, Jill said. Greener? You mean darker green? Or a different shade of green? Sam asked. Gosh, I hope that he is okay. I didn't even think about if he could breathe our air okay. Jill got a look of panic on her face. Don't say that. We'd better hurry, Sam said as he started pedaling his bike again. Albert, Sam, and Jill rode as quickly and quietly as they could to the edge of the small grove of trees and stopped. The spaceship was cordoned off with bright green government tape, and there was an armed military guard standing next to it. Well, forget trying to get back into the ship, Sam said. I can't believe how cool this is, Albert said as he looked at the ship in awe. Cool? It looks really scary to me, Jill said. How's Kato doing? Sam asked. He looks sleepy, Jill said. Sam looked at Jill. I took a black bag that was near his cage when I left. Maybe there is food in there for him. Maybe he just needs to eat. Come on. Let's get back to my house, Stat. Cage? Albert asked. Jill nodded and followed Sam. Albert took a minute longer to look at spaceship, and then he had to pedal twice as fast to catch up to Jill and Sam. When they finally got to the edge of the forest next to Sam's house, they stopped and looked around and up at the sky before they exited. They quickly rode through the open field and leaned their bikes against the side of the house, like they always did. Albert and Jill followed Sam upstairs to his room. Sam slid off his backpack and quickly unzipped it. Kato was very out of it. He was very relaxed, and his eyes were closed. "Maybe he is just sleepy," Albert said as he leaned forward and looked at Kato, as Sam sat down on his bed and held him. Episode 9. Findings. "Maybe," Sam said. "Albert, can you please open that black bag that's sitting on my bed and see if there is any baby food in there?" "Sure," Albert said as he straightened up and walked over to the end of the bed. He looked at the black bag. "You said you got this off of the spaceship?" Albert asked as he looked at it. "You aren't afraid to open it, are you?" Jill asked. Albert shook his head. "No, at first I thought that it was cool. But now that you said that, what if there is some alien creature in here?" Sam gave Albert a look. "How bad can it be?" "I don't know," Albert said. "You said that Kato was in a cage. Why was he kept in a cage? Maybe he is dangerous. Would you just open the bag already?" Jill quipped. She was worried about Kato. She wasn't sure if he was sleeping like babies do, or if he had low blood sugar or something else was wrong with him. She quickly walked over to the bag and unzipped it. Jill looked inside the bag and took out a plastic jar of baby food, a spoon, and a bib. She gave Albert a look and said, "Are you satisfied?" Jill quickly turned and brought the baby food, spoon, and bib over to Sam and Kato. "Can you open it for me?" Sam asked. Jill nodded and opened the jar of baby food. It made a popping sound that woke Kato up. He looked at Jill and then at the baby food jar. He smiled, cooed, and moved his arms and his legs in excitement. "He was just sleeping," Sam said with a smile. "Can you put his bib on?" Sam asked. "Sure," Jill said with a smile. She set the baby food down on the bed and carefully put Kato's light blue bib on. Then she picked up the spoon and the baby food and put some of the food on the spoon. Kato opened his mouth and ate the baby food and cooed. "He has no teeth," Albert said in amusement as he watched Jill feed Kato. "He's just a baby," Jill said. "Babies don't have teeth." Jill fed Kato until the jar was empty, while Sam held him. Jill looked at Sam. "Do you think that one jar is enough?" she asked. Sam shrugged his shoulders. "Let's see if he seems to want more." Jill put the lid back on the jar and then she, Albert, and Sam watched Kato. "He seems full," Albert said. "Cool," Sam said. "So, what are we going to do with him?" Albert asked. "And why was he in a cage?" Sam laughed. "Enough with the cage already. It's probably so he wouldn't crawl out and get lost on the ship or into something that he shouldn't touch." Albert nodded and said, "Oh, well, I guess that we can keep him for a few days, but then what?" Jill asked as she set the spoon down on Sam's dresser. She sighed and then threw the jar away in a small trash can that was next to Sam's dresser. Pam walked back to Kato and Sam and then took Kato's bib off and put it back in the black bag. She looked through the black bag. "Depending on how much he eats, it looks like there may be enough food and diapers to last a month." "What about Uncle Irving?" Albert asked as he sat down on the bed and looked at Kato. "I think that we are too young to take care of a baby." "Your Uncle Irving, the scientist?" Sam asked. Sam looked at Kato. He knew that he couldn't take care of him as well as he needed to be taken care of, and that it would be hard to keep him from his mother for long. Sam looked at Albert. "Won't he run all kinds of experiments on him?" Episode 10. Hiding. Before Albert could answer, Sam's mom came home and honked her horn. "Oh no, my mom's home," Sam said as he looked at his friends and then at Kato. "Why did she honk her horn?" Albert asked. "That means that she bought groceries home, and that she wants me to help her to carry them in." Sam stood up and held Kato out to Jill and Albert. "Here, one of you has to hold Kato while I go down to help. We can't let him crawl around in my room." Albert looked at Kato and shook his head. Sam held Kato up to Jill. "Hurry, before my mom gets suspicious," Sam said. Jill carefully took Kato from Sam. Kato looked at her and reached his hand out to her face and touched her cheek. Jill laughed. Sam ran out of his room, barely closing his door behind him. Albert walked over to the door and closed it all the way and then went over to the bedroom window and looked out. Sam was already outside helping his mom with a couple of paper grocery bags that were full. A few minutes later, Sam came back in the room. He looked at Albert and Jill. "My mom said that you two could spend the night. She got really good tips today, so she said that she will order us a pizza." Albert smiled. He loved food. "Cool." Jill looked at Kato. He was looking at her and smiling. "Okay, but how are we going to hide Kato from your mom? She will get suspicious if we all stay in your room." "Yeah, we always eat pizza and watch a movie together in the den," Albert said. Sam sat down on his bed and frowned. "I didn't think of that." Sam looked at Jill. "Maybe Jill could pretend to go home with a stomachache, and then sneak back inside while we are in the den and take care of Kato." Jill gave Sam a look. She didn't want to miss out on pizza and a movie. "And where will Kato be while I am leaving and then sneaking back in? We can't leave him alone." Sam nodded his head. "That's true." "Hey, what if we put him in your backpack again?" Albert suggested. "And just bring the backpack downstairs and keep our eye on it while we eat?" Sam nodded his head slowly and smiled and said, "That just might work." Sam stood up and picked up his backpack. He took a small, soft towel that was clean and sitting on his dresser and put it on the bottom of the backpack. "Shouldn't we change his diaper first?" Jill asked. Both Albert and Sam looked at Jill. "Is that what that smell is?" Albert asked as he scrunched his nose. "I thought that Sam had left some old socks in here under his bed." "Ha ha, very funny," Sam said with a smile. "Sure, Jill, if you could do the honors." Jill laughed and quickly changed Kato's diaper before they carefully put Kato into the backpack. Sam looked at Albert and Jill. "Okay, you two distract my mom in the kitchen, while I quickly bring down my backpack. If she sees me carrying it, she will definitely get suspicious." "Okay," Jill and Albert said in unison. They quickly went downstairs and found Pam in the kitchen and made small talk while Sam quietly snuck downstairs and put the backpack in the den next to the side of the couch. "Okay, Kato, you need to stay here and be quiet. Okay?" Sam said as he looked through the opening of the backpack. Kato looked at Sam and blinked twice. Episode 11. Where is Kato? Sam slowly walked away and then stopped and looked at the backpack from the doorway. He was worried about leaving Kato in the den alone. Sam ran to the kitchen and kissed his mom on the cheek. Albert and Jill were sitting at the kitchen table. "Thanks for ordering pizza, Mom. I'm going to go ahead and go to the den and pick us out a movie to watch tonight." Before Pam could say anything, Sam ran out of the room and back to the den. He stopped dead in his tracks for a moment when he couldn't see the backpack as he entered the room. Sam sighed with relief when he saw that the backpack was still there. It was just lying on its side. However, his sense of relief was only temporary, as he went over to the side of the couch and realized that the backpack was open. Sam quickly leaned over and looked inside. It was empty. Sam quickly looked around. There was no movement in the den. He looked on and under the couch and behind the television and bookshelves and under the end tables and coffee table. Sam looked at the back sliding door. It was ajar. "Oh no!"
Sam shouted.
"What's wrong?" Pam asked as she walked into the den with a tray of glasses filled with root beer and a stack of napkins. Sam turned and looked at Pam. He couldn't think of anything to say. He paused for a moment and then said, "Oh, the movie that I wanted to see isn't on tonight like I thought that it was." Pam laughed as she set the tray down on the coffee table. "You're so dramatic, Sam." Sam was about to say something when Albert and Jill walked into the den. He gave them a look of distress and mouthed the words, "Kato is missing." He motioned with his hands out of habit, trying to show Albert and Jill that Kato got out of the backpack. Pam turned and looked at Sam and shook her head and laughed. "I think that you need to eat, Sammy." Sam looked at Pam. His hands were still in the air. "I was just asking Jill and Albert if they wanted to play charades until the pizza gets here." Pam gave Sam a look and said, "Charades? You haven't played charades since you were 7. Sam scratched the back of his neck. "We played just last week. You were at work." Pam nodded. She felt bad for being a little too hard on Sam.
I'm sorry.
"Anyway, you kids have fun. The pizza should be here any moment. Just then, the doorbell rang. I will get it, Pam said. She left the room. Jill and Albert ran over to Sam. They gave him a quick look and then looked down at the empty backpack on the floor. What happened? Albert asked. Where's Kato? Jill asked. Before Sam could answer, Pam came back into the den with the pizza. She set the box down on the coffee table next to the tray. She saw Sam's schoolbooks on the coffee table on the left but refrained from saying anything about them. You guys have fun. If you need anything, I will be in my room studying.
Sam nodded.
Albert and Jill said, Thank you. For the pizza and root beer, Mrs. Shepherd. Yeah, thanks, Mom, Sam said. Pam smiled at the kids and went back to the kitchen and then upstairs to her room. Come on, we have to find Kato, Sam whispered loudly as he looked over at the open patio door. Do you think that he went outside? Jill asked as she started walking towards the patio door. Sam followed her, while Albert picked up a piece of pizza before joining them at the patio door. Look, there he is, Jill said a little too loudly as she pointed over to a red wheelbarrow that was in the backyard next to a tree. Come on, we need to get him before he wanders off, Sam said as he squeezed through the narrow opening of the patio door. Don't move too fast, or it may scare him off.